Okay. So for today's discussion, we will be providing how we protect modern workforce nowadays, because we all know users are not just confined within the network or the local area network, but they are going mobile. So this is where iboss comes in. We provide a zero trust architecture, and we cover the secure access service edge to allow users to connect securely to any application from anywhere. Again, I'm Ranshane Dagdag. I'm the sales engineer covering the Asia Pacific region. So just a quick agenda for today's discussion. So what we will be discussing is a subset of cyber threat landscape. What are the threats that we need to look out, especially when most of us, especially when you are the IT administrator or you're responsible for the cybersecurity of your organization, and how can we redefine network security to deliver a zero trust architecture, and how can we protect also the modern workforce, even they are on premise or even on road. And then lastly would be the question and answer. So let's first set the level of our expectations here. So the the details or the threats that I'll be discussing to you guys is just a subset of all the threats that out there from the internet. So I've select 6 from it because I believe that these 3 threats gave a big impact, especially to business continuity. Because when you talk about business continuity, we should all the data and transit going to any destination should be inspected so that no malicious threat will be compromising the endpoints, and also access to any resources will streamline with fast connection and security in place. So if my question here is, if you are responsible for cyber threat, cybersecurity of your organization, so what you need to look out for? So these are the 6 I get from the internet. So number 1 would be phishing. So we all know phishing. Uh, Phishing from its word, it stole credential. It can thwart or can redirect users into a fake website wherein there's a possibility to stall the credit card's number or even the login credential. So this is where the main goal of phishing is to stall the credential from all users. Second thing is ransomware. So when we talk about ransomware, this usually involve money or cryptocurrency as ransom to the encrypted data or the encrypted endpoint that the attacker have been compromised. Okay, and in relation to exploit, we all know, if you're familiar, some of the attack like WannaCry, so they fully leverage of the vulnerability through exploit, wherein it resulted into ransomware. I believe one of the ransomware also that attack life insurance like AXA is the Rabadon ransomware, wherein most of the data have been exfiltrated and have been encrypted. Okay, and the fourth one is what we call supply chain, targeting the less vulnerable system on your network. It can be the user or the device because they are already outside the network. And the next one would be advanced persistent threat. So when you talk about attacker have been presence into the network. So they're spying all the details, and once they get the their goal, or once they stole those credential or sensitive information, they are now ready to exfiltrate those data. And lastly would be insider threat. It can be the attacker. Outsider can be insider because once the credential have been stolen through phishing site or any techniques, so that outsider can be insider as well. Another thing is insider being used for competition. Maybe they hired some personnel to spy on a particular environment or particular organization, and then once they did their goals, so they can now exfiltrate data. So who are the target of these cyber threats? So normally, we all know most of us are now into the digital transformation. As the data traversing to the internet, we can have a snip on it. We can use social engineering to thwart users to redirect on your own website and get any stolen, sensitive information from those users. So in conjunction to this threat, so the challenges that most of the enterprise are now facing are the following. So if the users here began to go mobile, the network security appliance uh, that are resided on the company data center are not sus- are unsustainable to protect these users, because maybe some of you guys are still using SLVPN to backhaul your traffic to go to the company data center before going into the internet or into your SaaS application. So that setup might result might add an latency or can impact your user experience, because you are sending all your now you are not just sending your private request but all web data or web traffic going to the company data center before going to the internet. Another thing here is it's real. The second thing here is applications move to the cloud. So when you talk about business continuity, we all know most of the enterprise to to have for their employee to be more productive, and that application began to transition as well to the cloud so that they can have access anytime and anywhere. But the effect of this transition can result into bandwidth explosion and encrypted traffic explosion, because the more the users go mobile, it increases as well the SSL traffic that will go to your SaaS application. Imagine if you are using VPN concentrator or SL VPN and sending that traffic, encrypted traffic going to your network, and that increase transition from, let's say, HTTP to HTTPS can result into bandwidth explosion, and this application in the cloud might require more bandwidth for them to access seamlessly. Okay. And lastly here is we need what we call network security based on a zero trust architecture to provide security to all users wherever they are. So it's some sort like a security that follows wherever the location of every users. So how can we redefine network security using the iboss platform, or the zero trust edge coming from the iboss platform? Simple. First thing here is we need to improve security posture of the company. So by providing access anytime to any resources, that resources can be your public resources or even your private resources. So by providing access anytime, anywhere, business continuity goal have been achieved, and in place there's still a security on the gateway level to inspect all data in transit going to that resources. So the security posture I'm talking here is providing a security that follows wherever the location of every users. Second one would be adapting to zero trust model architecture. So when you talk about zero trust, we all know, most of you know, we authenticate who is the user. We authorize on specific resources only that will be accessed by that user based on his or her role. But the truth behind zero trust is every transaction going to resources should be inspected by the solution. So having the transaction inspected always, we ensure fast compliant and security in place anytime and uh, anytime and everywhere. And next thing here for the third bullet would be adapting or implementing a SASE or zero trust platform, wherein all these users, even they go outside or even they go to the on-premise network, they all same policy will enforce to them. So that solution should be a vendor agnostic, regardless of the network connectivity, even is connected to mobile network or to a coffee shop or even to the to the company network. Same policy should be enforced to that users. And in to achieve the zero trust platform, we should use a containerized security gateways wherein organization should have a dedicated data plane, even we are delivering a SaaS platform here. So that dedicated data plane ensure that only traffic coming from organization will be traversing to that gateway. So no one is sharing with other organization. And lastly here is eliminate appliance management overhead. So if you look back into how most of the network security security appliance security solution are implemented, most of it are on the data center. So you manage it one by one, and then from the management point of view, normally you consume more time on the management than focusing on the cyber security aspect of your company. So how can we redefine network security here is this is the solution of iboss. So we are providing what we call containerized architecture. So we base this one on a zero trust edge, or what we call the secure access service solution, and we anchored this solution in the in a NIST, or National Institute of Standard Special Publication 800-207. So the way how we deliver the platform is very different, because we are allocating every organization their own gateways and with a dedicated public IP address. In that case, you can lock down parameter of this application to ensure that only traffic coming from iboss will have an access to your SaaS application or to your private application. Okay. So the second bullet here is, since you have the granularity of control on all the organization's traffic through the dedicated data plane with dedicated IP address, so we can also scale horizontally, even devices proliferates every year. And lastly, when it comes to the deployment of iboss, so we can adapt whatever your preference. So we can do full cloud, hybrid setup, having iboss appliance inside the company data center, and iboss cloud for your remote users. So we are giving you 100% feature priority. So as you can see here, these are all the features encompassed by iboss. So we have here proxy functionality, and for the DLP, so we can parse, inspect data in motion to see if there's any sensitive data to be leaked over the internet, or vice versa. Let's say you have sensitive information from a SaaS application and you don't want to download them locally to your local devices, so we can use DLP on that. So the firewall here is more on a stateful firewall. So we can do blocking of destination based on IP with the specific port, and we can also turn on the IPS engine to check if there's any exploit coming from the internet that can compromise the endpoint devices. Okay, so for the RBI here, we use this one to you know you know we use this one to, let's say, we the let's say from the internet, we all know most of the domain there, maybe they are not safe, maybe some of them are are new. So we can use the RBI to isolate the browser session into the RBI node. So it's some sort like you have your remote desktop in the cloud, wherein you can still have access to any compromised website, new website, or not rated website, but you are still protected with iboss, because we can block any downloads coming from that uh, new website or compromised website. So any threats hidden on that website, so we can block on the gateway level. When it comes to reporting here, so for the reporting, this would be the consolidation of all the logs coming from every users. So we are allocating also a dedicated IP address, so that you can stream the logs to any SIEM that you want to forward those events or logs. For the Z10A here came from the word Zero Trust Network Access. So this is the replacement of SLVPN. So when you talk about SLVPN, normally you authenticate the users, but you are not inspecting all the transaction going to your application. So that's where security blind spot comes in, because nowadays we all know if someone is being compromised, all the transaction we need to inspect before reaching any critical application or critical server that resided on the company data center. So on the Z10A point of view, we never place the users directly into the network. So all the requests coming from these devices, should be brokered by iboss before reaching any application that are resided on your company data center or even to the public cloud. For CASB control, so we use this one to have a fine grain control on all these application. So from here, so let's say one of the most used cases is the tenant restriction. So for the tenant restriction, we can ensure that only company email domain will have an access, example, to Office 365 or to Gmail application. In some cases, some enterprise don't want to block Facebook, but they want to block services within Facebook. So we use the CASB control. Let's say you want to block photo upload or YouTube comments, so we use CASB control. For malware detection, so we are not just detecting it, but we are also preventing any malware that is propagating from internet or vice versa. So let's say the point of entry of malware would be via offline, or let's say through what you call through USB. So we can block any connection because most of the malware are connecting to what we call command and control center. And lastly here, the reason why we include packet capture because of the containers architecture. So that gateway is dedicated to your environment, and that IP address is dedicated to your environment as well. So you can make that IP address as your own identity when you are searching or surfing the internet, or on behalf of all users wherever they are. This IP address will be given by iboss, would be the source IP for all users. So from the packet capture point of view, so you can see any connection on you can have the visibility on the packet level, so you can do packet capture without the need of any backend engineer, because in comparison with multi-tenant architecture, mostly multi-tenant architecture, when you do packet capture, you can capture all the logs coming from not just from your own organization, but traffic coming from other organization. And if you talk about compliance or zero trust concept or architecture, so what we have here is the what we call um, what we have here is the zero trust concept. So we base we anchor the solution on an NIST SB 800-207, which we talk about a zero trust principle. So there are four key terms here. So asset should be the device or IoT device. Subject can be the user or any API service. And resource, it can be your application data that are resided anywhere. So we don't what do you call this? We don't tag if it's private or public. So we inspect all data in transit going to any resources, so that at the policy enforcement point, this is where iboss comes in. So all data in transit going to any application are subject for compliance, malware defense, and data loss prevention at all times. So wherever you are, the policy enforcement point will follow you. So we can provide you a comprehensive solution to to prevent cyber attacks coming from the internet or even via offline. So what we have with the iboss right now is we are currently uh, headquarters in Clark, Pampanga. So most of us are Filipino, or all of us. The backend support or even the pre-sales implementation are all Filipino. So the APAC region the head office of the Asia Pacific region is headquarters here in Asia Pacific or the Philippines, and we cover most of the customer on the Asia Pacific region. So on the platform itself, so we are delivering already at 230 patents, and we still develop more to provide more comprehensive protection to our valued customer. So when it comes to the infrastructure itself, so we are securing 200 billion transaction per day. And out of this, we can capture for approximately 4 billion, since we are not just inspecting HTTP, but we also inspecting SSL traffic. So from there, we can have more visibility on what if there's malicious content or malicious activity that is going on the data traversing to any application. And lastly here, when it comes to infrastructure, so we have already 100 plus points of presence that would be our global data center scattered across the world. And for the customer, we have already, so we can these are the most of the top three coming from these verticals are now into iboss. So they are using iboss as their zero trust cloud security platform to protect them wherever they are. So it is anchored with the zero trust principle that by default we never trust who is the user. They should be complied first, and then all the data in transit should be inspected before reaching any application. And when it comes to business impact and business continuity, so we are providing you a full cloud um, to ensure all users wherever they are, we can still provide protection for them. So in some cases, we can also do hybrid setup or full on-prem. It depends on the requirements or case-to-case basis that you want to enforce on your environments. So in line with the business continuity, iboss inspect those data traffic before reaching any application so that those resources will not be compromised or even the endpoint will not be compromised. So we can achieve business continuity, which 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 the goal is towards more business and development. So that's where iboss comes in. So we provide security to all users from any location to any resources, public resources and private resources. And I think that would be the last of my slide. And we are now transitioning into a question and answer.